Well, let's go off to the Bloemfontein High Court, where judgment has just been handed down in that case that was brought by Doctor Nandipha Magudumana that her deportation from Tanzania be declared unlawful. Judge Lopser, earlier on handing down his judgment, has now dismissed that application with cost. Chriselda Lewis, our reporter, standing by for us. Chriselda, good morning, and thank you once again for making time for us. So the judgment is out. What's the reaction from those who are attending the court proceedings this morning?
Well, certainly, Alden, looks like what one could refer to as a win-win situation here, because this court basically said, you'd recall Dr. Nandipha Magudumana had basically said what took place in Tanzania was not a deportation, but a disguised extradition. This court basically finding towards that, but striking off a number of other issues. You'd recall in court papers, she also indicated that she consulted with a lawyer prior to being brought back to South Africa. However, that was to challenge her detention, but that didn't happen because she was brought back to South Africa. That was struck off. Also, on the aspect you'd recall, she had mentioned in her papers some statements that were made by government officials in April, but this court basically striking that off as well, because they also found that she did not have those sentiments shared in her founding papers. I want to bring in very quickly Machini Mutlawung, representing Dr. Nandipha Magudumana. Your reaction to today's judgment, Mr. Mutlawung?
Look, obviously it didn't go away. We're going to be studying the judgment properly to have an understanding where, if there are any issues that perhaps we can take up. But where we are now, we're going to be taking instructions from our client, and we will also, arrange an urgent meeting with the legal team just to ventilate on a myriad of issues, coming from this judgment, so that, it would be more of a mapping exercise, so that we are able to know if, we will take the matter further. Yeah.
I understand that you might be headed to Kroonstad immediately to consult with your lawyers, with Dr. Nandipha Magudumana. Is that correct?
Indeed, so. Indeed, so.
Headed. Right.
Indeed, so.
You kind of put it like you are likely to challenge this decision. Would you be heading to a higher court?
Look, from where I am, and with the reasons given in this judgment, one cannot rule out that possibility. One, for instance, the issue of the conduct of the respondents in receiving the applicant, our client. This issue is settled now. It is confirmed that this was a disguised extradition, and thus it talks to really the legalities involved in the process. So there is one issue that the court actually mentioned, which swayed the court to dismiss the application, which is an issue of consent. It's an issue in our view which is a sticky point. It's highly contentious, and thus we'll zoom into these reasons and check if are they really aligned to the judgment in totality. Did such perceived consent really warrant the dismissal of the application? So these are the a conglomeration of factors that we'll take into account in really mapping the way forward, whether we take the matter to the higher court or but where we are now is to take instructions from our client, and followed by an ad hoc meeting with the legal team to ventilate on the issues.
Machini Mutlawung, thank you very much indeed. We do appreciate your time. The lawyer representing, of course, Dr. Nandipha Magudumana. You recall, of course, other lawyers that had been brought on board were advocate. One of the other advocates that had been representing Dr. Nandipha Magudumana, two others as well there, Eldrin, which had been included on that. Anton Katz, you would recall, was arguing on behalf of Dr. Nandipha Magudumana. The reason why we say a win-win situation here, because while the application, Eldrin, itself has been dismissed, you would have heard the court indicate that, it believes that indeed this would have been, from what has been placed before call it, a disguised extradition, and it certainly seems that that is what the lawyers will be using as a basis, as they say. They will not be ruling out taking this to another court. Let me quickly bring in some of our analysis. Just very quickly, Mampopi, let me speak to you very quickly. We'll bring you in, Sistikeledi. Mampopi Bereng, you have been here at the court as well. You are an interested party in this particular matter, even though the murder charges had been dropped against the accused. The issue of how your relative's body, Katleho Bereng, had got into the prison is one of the issues that has been ventilated in this court, or the court, the magistrate's court here in Bloemfontein. Your reaction, of course, to today's judgment here at the High Court regarding the application that was brought?
On behalf of Bereng family, we are very happy, very satisfied with the outcome or the judgment of today, and not surprised though, because from the onset, the way SABC and NPA had been handling the matter, it's beginning to show that justice is prevailing, and going forward, we think we will get justice at the end of the day. We are quite happy. I understand they are going to appeal the matter, or they're still going to consider that. However, I still maintain and believe that the truth will always be the truth. Black can never change to white, and white can never change to black.
Mampopi Bereng, thank you very much indeed. We appreciate your time. Let me bring in Sistikeledi Moeti, who will speak to, at this particular stage, on some analysis of what had transpired. Some key points, Sistikeledi. Number one, the application dismissed, but the court saying that it is inclined to lean towards, in fact, it has leaned towards the fact that what took place in Tanzania was this so-called disguised extradition that Dr. Nandipha Magudumana had claimed.
Based on what the court has just made the judgment for today, basically the court was relying on the notice of motion as well as the prayers that has been brought before this court. And we have to remember that when the application has been brought before the court, as it is, it has to stand as it is. The applicant has to stand on his own notice of motions as well as their prayers. It cannot be changed without an amendment before the court. So the judgment that has came to this court, it came in a sense that the notice of motion and the prayers, it was for them that what they are requesting, and they were relying on that because basically there are some loopholes on the affidavits that it has not been stated by the applicant before they came. So they relied on the judgment. Basically today it relied on their notice of motion and what they are praying for as the applicant for Nandipha Magudumana.
Her lawyer certainly indicating that there's a possibility that they might challenge this. Do we see grounds for that based on some of the aspects that the court mentioned, in particular regarding the manner in which, that was the bone of contention here, the manner in which she was transported from Tanzania and brought back to South Africa? We're talking about the disguised extradition versus the deportation. Do they have grounds?
Basically, currently on this moment, it will depend on the instructions of instructions of Dr. Nandipha of what they're giving to them, whether they are going to appeal on this matter based on what grounds. According to me, there is no enough grounds to say that they're going to appeal against this matter. The thing that I believe that they have to do, as Dr. Nandipha to do today, is just to remember that she has suspended her bail application. Remember, there's still the agency on that she wanted to come home to see the kids, and there's an agency of her to work for her work. So she can just entertain now, go back to the magistrate court and entertain her agency of being released, which is a very important thing that she wants. She wants to be out of the prison. So she has to go back and entertain it, the bail application.
Thank you very much indeed. We really do appreciate your time, Sister Keledi Moeti, giving us some analysis on possibilities of what might take place here, Aldrin. So my colleague, Kamokhelo Siekoi, is at the facility, the Correctional Services Facility in Kroonstad, where Dr. Nandipha Magudumana is currently detained. And we know that, as confirmed by her lawyer, Machini Mutlawung, that he is headed to Kroonstad at this moment and will be consulting with his client on what their way forward is. But certainly breaking news at this hour, the application itself being dismissed, and a number of aspects that the court also touching on, that the court striking off, as I earlier mentioned, the aspect where Dr. Nandipha Magudumana indicates in her papers that she consulted a lawyer for her detention in Tanzania at the time, and she was not able to entertain that particular aspect because she'd been brought back to South Africa in this disguised extradition, and also on the statements that were made by government officials in April. You would recall that in her founding papers, Dr. Nandipha Magudumana didn't mention any of that in her founding papers regarding her discontent with some of the statements that were made relating to government officials. So my colleague Kamokhelo Siekoi will have more details, if any reaction at all, but we do know that she would possibly be based there once the lawyers arrive at the correctional facility in Kroonstad, where Dr. Nandipha Magudumana's lawyers are headed to now following the court's decision.
And Chriselda, on that question also is what happens to the bail application, because she still has that opportunity to apply for bail, taking into consideration that the reason that she said that she's putting that aside is because of this application that has been brought before the court. Do we know as yet whether that is something that the lawyers would be exploring?
Well, not at this particular time, but possibly I could bring in Ndata Mutlaung. Perhaps just one more question on your part. Ndata Machini Mutlaung, just 1 second, please, if we could just have you for a second. In fact, Aldrin, I might as well ask him. He's still here. He's just about to head to Kroonstad, but I will be able to bring him in. Let's ask the man himself instead of getting my personal opinion. Ndata Mutlaung, possibility also that you might look at of bringing that bail application before the Magistrates Court?
Look, where we are now, we are in the High Court, and we are dealing with a judgment that was, issued out in the High Court, and in the event that really we take, instructions, and the instruction is to appeal, obviously our full focus will be on this process. So, as indicated before, we reserved our right to deal with bail application at a later stage.
Right.
Yeah, so for now it's off the shelf. What we are focusing our energies on is to really zoom into the reasons for this judgment and take a decision whether we appeal the judgment or not. But this is our focus.
All right. Thank you very much indeed. We appreciate it. Off to Kroonstad he goes. Aldrin, I thought I'd bring in Machini Mutlawung to hear from the horse's mouth, if I may, on what their course of action will be next. He's off to Kroonstad to get instructions, but of course, those instructions will certainly deal with this particular aspect, he says, on whether they will appeal the decision of this court, the dismissal of this application, and what course of action. Recall, the last time, you're correct, Aldrin, that we heard that Dr. Nandipha Magudumana was abandoning or reserving her right to apply for bail at the time, that indicated that more information had come to light. This was certainly it. Once this application had been launched in this court, we then knew that this was the direction that Dr. Nandipha Magudumana and her lawyers were taking to challenge the legality of her arrest and the process used to deport her from Tanzania. So we'll certainly hear, I guess, after that consultation has taken place, what the course of action will be on the part of Dr. Nandipha Magudumana, but certainly not ruling out the possibility of that appeal.